Indiana Jones. It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute, the podcast in which we celebrate and discuss the film Raiders of the Lost Ark 1 minute at a time. I'm Tom Taylor from IamTomTaylor.com.
I'm Pete from PeteRemembers.com.
I'm Jerry from I'm Jerry.
And I'm Scott, a salesman for Skype.
If you want
Skype.
a choppy signal.
It's the best.
In quotes.
It's the best.
All right. Well, thanks for coming back. Thanks for braving the channels and the signals and everything, Scott, and coming back to join us for minute 39.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Still excited.
It's just getting more exciting because minute 39 begins with Marion calling Indy a bum, and it ends with her being carried off in a hay cart. And Marion walking the streets of Cairo with Indy, buying sousaphones and trinkets and things, seems to be 100% fine with everything that she was furious at Indy for, back in Nepal. She's like easy breezy, hanging out with Indy, water under the bridge, She's feeling fine about everything.
It's true. She's
Well, he
softened
said, yeah, she's out of Nepal.
Yeah, but she's even like making jokes about I guess it's sort of Indy's joke, but it took a lot for you to alienate Abner. He's like, not much, just you. But she sort of knows that she's setting him up for that line, kind of. She must.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it was a real snuggle plane ride.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. Hey, it works for them. They're a
She's
cute
softened,
couple.
yeah.
I'm happy for them.
Yeah, you do get a sense. It's like, yeah, we're back in the saddle. This is good. It's like there's a real chemistry between them. So it's good stuff.
What's fascinating is that the first about 15 minutes ago or so, we were saying, maybe it's 10. We were talking about what a jerk and what a cad and Indy was, and here. You kind of, because he walks into Marion's bar and he's like, "It's a worthless medallion. You gonna give it to me? Come on," right. and then here it's like for some reason, you always give him the benefit of the doubt, even when you're like, maybe he's being manipulative. I don't know. I guess I always do. It always seems that way because you're like, oh yeah, you remember when he apologizes in the bar to her and he's like, "I said I'm sorry." And she's like, well, say it again anyway. And you're like, yeah, he seems to actually be like he wants to mend it in this scene.
Yeah. He knows he did something wrong.
Oh, I think he's totally into the idea of rekindling a romance. I mean, it seems like he's trying to play it cool, but from the second he says it, when he's packing to leave on the trip, and it's like, oh, do you suppose she'll still be with him? All the way up to this moment and through the rest of it, it's like you can tell he is just as excited about, there's just this, what could happen? What could happen?
Yeah.
We're back in each other's lives again. It really shows up on screen.
Yeah, it sounds like, we don't know exactly what happened, but we can fill in the blanks, that he handled whatever their relationship was back then completely the wrong way, and today he'd probably be in jail for it, but that he actually sincerely has actual feelings for her. And he feels like a jerk for what happened, for what he did. But, he's trying to move past that, it seems. And I hope they can do it.
I get the sense that she's mad at him for not being braver about, all right, so we got caught, in this illicit affair, and my father caught us, and the society caught us, but then you ran off. You couldn't take the heat. And, that she's taking him to task for that, not for... that the heartbreak came from the fact that he wouldn't be brave with her. That was always my sense of it.
Well, if you read the stuff that was cut out of like the screenplay and stuff, it sounds that it might be a little bit more like that. But if you just go from what's in the movie, it sounds like he just straight up took advantage of her and had no intention of like having like a relationship or anything, or
Really?
I don't know. That was
yeah.
well, that was always my read on it, but I don't really know.
I don't know. I've never read those other things.
Oh, okay.
I'm only ever going by the movie, but maybe it's just what I want to have been the.
Well, yeah.
That's sort of what I want to read into these characters.
You can't have this conversation.
Really were a team.
Yeah, you can't have this conversation without being like, wait, just how creepy is Indiana Jones?
Yeah, well,
like what exactly are we talking about?
That's true.
But in the end, he's a good guy. And he protects her from a bunch of fighting marauders who run into the thing to the strains of bouncing flutes and violins and things, which is
Everything
awesome.
about this scene is fantastic. It's like a Keystone Cops opera, and it's like the music's fantastic. It's whimsical, but it's menacing, and everything's great.
It's the classic John Williams, urban Cairo market mischief.
Yeah.
Kind of like the South American pompous mischief
Yeah.
music. It's reminiscent of that.
You're big on the mischief.
I am. But what completely creeps me out about this whole thing, though, is it is Keystone Cops and capers. Oh my, except when that one guy gets completely skewered.
Oh yeah.
And he goes, ah! And
Right.
It's like a awful blood curdling scream that gets kind of edited out really quick. He goes, ah!
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then he pulls it out.
Yep.
And you're like, Jesus, that's the sort of thing you'd leave in to quell or stem the bleeding, and you'd be like,
you're just making
Yeah.
it worse.
yeah, you're just making it worse. You're like,
You're pulling
that
a
guy's
lemon
gonna bleed
through him.
out on the
I was gonna
street.
say.
Yeah, it's such a nice touch because he's got 2 pieces of fruit skewered on the end too.
I was gonna say somebody comes up and squeezes a lemon into the wound right behind him.
Yeah, that sword actually stings more coming out because it's got lemon juice all over it.
Like, we're all having fun, and it's like, hey, and he's like, duck. And you're like, yo. And then that happens. You're like, oh, my God.
That man just died. He had a family.
So, Tom, you brought this up a couple minutes ago, but what are the guys trying to do here? Are they trying to kill him, or are they just trying to scare him? I mean, it seems what's happening, they're trying to kill him.
What's weird is I don't know if we can fully answer that in this 1 minute, but it's because, yeah, it seems like, I don't know. I'll just say that, like, yeah, it seems like right now they're obviously trying to kill them. And I'm not totally sure why. I guess it's just because, I mean, I guess it makes sense if Belloc is like, oh, Indiana Jones is in town. He's still going to be going after the Ark. He's good. He's not as good as me, but he's good. We need to keep him at bay or keep him out of the picture completely. Put him on ice is what I'm saying. Take care of him.
I think that's definitely it.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
he has to be. Both of them. They have to be sort of gotten out of the way because he doesn't have he has what he thinks is the information, but he doesn't have the headpiece. His stuff is sort of second rate.
Yeah.
And he knows that the first rate party is still out there and still at large. And I think he can see exactly what happens, what winds up happening. I think he could see that coming a mile away, especially if he has this sort of backstory with Indiana Jones where they just dog each other around the world forever.
Right.
I think he figures we got to do away with this guy.
Yeah.
Well, Belloc always comes across as civilized, but at the end of the day, it's like he thinks nothing of killing you.
Right.
Oh no.
And that's sort of and it's kind of dark actually.
Yeah, he's very pistols at dawn, gentlemanly killing each other kind of guy.
But he's very colonial
I
about
don't know,
it.
man. I mean,
Yeah.
he's the same guy who also just, lets a guy with 60 darts in his back, just kind of throws him down in front of him saying, all right, deal with that.
Right. But he looks great
and then
doing
laughs
it.
when he kind of sicks the entire Jovitos nation on Indy and turns around and laughs at him. This is not a nice guy.
No. But he looks
and seemingly
great.
has
He's
made
dapper.
his career on. It seems like both of these guys, they just make their career on stealing other people's hard work. I mean, Indy
Right.
is certainly doing that in this movie. It's been said a lot that, well, he doesn't really do anything in the movie, and it's the Nazis who make the big discovery. If you really stop and think about it, it's like, well, the entire party, paid for by Hitler. It's like, well, this is the Hitler expedition, and it uncovered Tanis. Oh, the Nazis have discovered Tanis, and they act like, oh, that's something we could just steal right there. But it's this is a major thing. This is something, Admiral Ravenwood tried to do for decades on end without any success.
Yeah, what do you think of that theory that I haven't actually read it, but it's like an internet thing that Raiders would play out exactly the same even if Indiana Jones weren't involved? Is that the idea?
I guess I don't know. I don't hold a lot of stock in those types of things because it's like, well, I don't much care what the functioning of that world is outside of this story. You're telling me a story. Tell me a story. It's like I don't care what the world is like outside of it.
Right.
I don't really hold much to world building. So the idea that, well, this could go on without Indy, it's like, well, yeah.
But it also doesn't make sense. Like
better with him.
Not to spoil anything, but he's the one who actually finds where the actual Well of Souls is, and he does everything. He's the hero of the movie. He does everything.
Yeah, it's his ingenuity that actually makes it so that they find the Ark. If not, they just found the dumb, they found this map room, and that's a big deal for, the spirit of archaeology, but it is not going to get you the Ark.
No.
It takes Indy's brains to do that.
Well, the interesting thing is, you think, look, Beloche would do much better if he just kept Indiana Jones alive all the time.
Yeah, let him do the work again.
Yeah, it's sort of like
which is kind of what happens
on the back of a shark. It's like you don't want to kill the shark,
right?
Well, and conversely, like Indy probably does better because Belloc keeps stealing his stuff.
Yeah,
it's like, well, he wouldn't be quite so motivated to win this thing if it wasn't the fact that Belloc was involved right off the bat. Like the second he, we buried it in tales of his sort of bad, silly laughter, bad acting, and this kind of canned moment that we have, but like. Clearly, when he realizes Belloc is involved, it gets all the juicier for Indy. I think.
Oh yeah,
it's a big deal.
Now, he immediately goes shopping.
Yeah, right.
He's like, I need a rug. I'm going to deal with Belloc.
I need some dates. If I'm gonna go up against this guy, I need some dates.
Hey, look, you eat him.
Yeah.
Belloc doesn't know that.
No, she'll be all right.
He'll steal him from me.
So what about this fight?
This fight is awesome.
I really like Marion hitting that guy over and over with the jerry can. Like just
very
gently. Yeah.
And I also want to know what everybody in the background is kind of like yelling and shaking their fist, but are they angry at like Indy and Marion, or are they angry at the guys, or are they even angry? Are they just like rooting for like, yeah, get them, or are they?
I think they're rooting. I think it's like they love a fight.
Certainly,
they like a good fight. Actually, I was in preparation for this. I was watching this with my son, and he's 13, and so to sort of makes a 13-year-old. He's seen this movie before. He knows how much I love it. It's not. He accepts its undeniable goodness. You can't watch this movie at any age and at any point in time and not come away thinking, well, that was great.
Right.
But he doesn't live and die by it the way somebody who might choose to take it apart minute by minute and then talk about it on a podcast. And his generation maybe never will. But when you watch this with a 13-year-old and you say, well, look at the action scene. You have an action scene that takes place. It's almost all wide shots. It's wide shots and medium wide shots. And the only time they ever go in for a close-up is for some piece of business. It's either like for a joke, a line of dialogue, duck,
Yeah.
But everything else is taking place wide, and what you get is this tremendous amount of background acting, and you're able, after the 157th viewing of this, to start thinking, well, what's that guy in a turban in the back jumping up and down for? And it's kind of amazing, and it gives the whole thing this sort of life where it's like, these guys just love a good fight. Like, look at them,
And
so I think they're happy about it.
And if you're thinking about, if you've got, I mean, especially in today's, CGI filled world and stuff, there's, you're kind of accepting that most of what you're seeing is fake. But when you see a scene like this with like so few cuts and so much of the action is just taking place in one shot like that, you're like, it took them a long time to figure this out and to choreograph this and to plan it exactly right. And it's like seeing a real, car chase or car crash in a movie. You're like, wow, those guys got in that car and they drove the car into the wall and they knew exactly what they were doing, so they weren't going to get killed. Like, there was a lot of effort that went into this that you're actually seeing actually happen on screen.
Yeah, it's a lot awesome. Like it all feels reminiscent of the car chase in The French Connection, which was done at that speed and was done without permits.
Without
if you can imagine
permission.
such a thing. Like seriously, they took the thing under the Allen Queens and did that, and there was a cameraman strapped to that car.
Yeah.
And it's similar to that. It's not quite, and actually, I think that they may even have had, aspirations to do something that big, and I think the rigors of production in this little town, the production designers and everybody had sort of said that shooting in this little town that's standing in for Cairo was really hard because the streets are very narrow.
Mm-hmm.
The extras were hard to corral. It was 110 degree. Everything about it was like really tough. So the action scenes got scaled down and scaled down and scaled down. But to our, sense as an audience of what's going on, I think it feels perfectly scaled. Like it's really, it's fast, it's fun, it's no bigger and no more grand than it needs to be.
Right.
Well, and it comes across as we said, like they do what would be sort of classic fight scenes or classic good guy, bad guy, or and it's right out of the old serials, or but they still do it so well.
Sure.
And sometimes it's even harder to pull out just a classic. You know what I mean? It's just harder to pull off something that's, it's really a throwback or homage to that type. But we were talking about this in the early minutes, and they still, it's so well acted, and the music is great, and the fight scenes. Although you're like, that's really Keystone Cop sort of thing. You love it. You're not like, this is corny.
Right. Yeah.
Well, no, that's exactly it. It's like it's if you start from a place of, hey, this is meant to be a little corny, I think Star Wars does the same thing, where it's like, look, this is meant to be a little bit Pollyanna-ish. It's meant to be a little bit simplistic. And if you go with us that far, we're going to give you something that just will take you away. It is just going to transport you. And I think that there's absolutely no wonder that it's the same people at work here, because that really is a great way to think about a relationship with an audience, is just to be like, yeah, I'm going to give you something, and it's not going to be I'm not going to pre-sell it as something super grand. I think it's probably where all subsequent iterations of these movies and prequels to Star Wars and even the current stuff, it's like it all feels too grand.
Right.
It's carrying too much weight, and this movie is light as a feather.
Yeah,
because it's not trying that hard. I think it's really something.
What's also interesting. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, the genre is. It sounds stupid. It's like, oh, Marshall McLuhan says the medium is the message, but it really feels like, well, this genre, it's like it is the answer. What am I gonna see? You're gonna see this.
Right.
It's very simple.
There's two things at the end of this minute that I never noticed, and they're really, really interesting. One, I never knew, when Indy pulls out the magical bullwhip, and once again, you're like, oh my God, there it is, saving everything.
Right.
And I never noticed. At first, you're like, oh, it keeps the attackers at bay. And you're like, sure, he pulls it out in this defensive and then almost offensive maneuver. But then I never really realized that you're like, and it starts the cart for Marion's getaway.
Right.
Yep.
I
think there was supposed to be
there was
supposed to be an insert shot of the horse getting spooked by the whip. I think that's supposed to happen, and we don't really see it.
That's a good point. It sort of seems like that.
I think that's what it is.
And then after that, and I have a question. I didn't notice this. Maybe you guys picked up on it. But at the very, very end of the minute, you see the cart. The cart's being pulled away, and you see Indy's back with the whip, and it's basically Marion's view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you're looking at Marion's view, and I was looking, and I'm like, do they ever have that type of view again, or point of view again?
Yeah, point of view shot.
Yeah, a point of view shot, but it's not Indy or not like whatever you want to say, the narrator or whatever, Do they ever just show you like, oh, this is what it looks like from where Toad is?
Right.
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
It almost seems, I love the shot, but there's something about it that seems out of place almost.
Well, it definitely, it gives you some sense that, like, well, this is about to be something that's going to take place from two people's point of view. Everything in this movie so far, from the very telegraphed Indy sort of, closing in on that idol and where the camera is his point of view. You experience everything in this movie from Indy's point of view, but in this moment, you're about to go with Marion on a bit of a ride.
Yeah.
And that shot, I think, sort of signals that very quickly, very sort of subconsciously
Yeah, she's moving away to
out
her own
because
half of the chase.
the choice to place that camera, that's not an easy shot to get. It's not an easy shot to decide to put in unless you want to make it have a very specific impact. And they made that choice.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, I'm on the cart. I'm in the hay. And you're just like, I can't think. I mean, maybe it shows up, maybe, but I can't think of another place where I'm thinking like I have that. I'm on the back of the white horse,
Right.
or I'm going
right.
under a truck, or whatever it is.
Right. No, it's very rare in this movie, I think.
Yeah,
I'll have to think ahead now, sort of play it all down in my head, but I don't think it happens much. But it's pretty significant here.
I have what? Go
I
ahead.
was going to say, can I ask a question involving hay?
Please do.
Yes. Where does a desert country get hay? Hay is, as I understand it, and I thought this while watching this today, so I looked it up. Desert countries that don't have a lot of grass, and maybe right on the banks of the Nile you get tall grass, but that's not going to produce hay that's for horses, which looks like what's in that cart, roll in the hay style hay. I believe that in the current day, and God knows what it was like back in the 30s, we sell hay to desert countries. Like we sell a significant amount of hay to Saudi Arabia to feed their cattle. So where the hell is this hay coming from? And why isn't it the most precious thing in the market square? It seems to be these clips show that this is mostly a pots and pans based economy, that all the vendors are selling pots. And if you go back and look at all these minutes, it's like, oh, yep, a big stand full of pots over here, stand full of pots over there.
It was the pot festival. He just happened to be in town for it.
Yeah, and Marion steals one, which you're surprised you don't then see the bizarre, the shopkeeper going, "Hey, give me that pot!"
My pot,
right?
It's mine.
But in the midst of all that, a cart that's just brimming with hay and dropping hay on the ground, and that would be a very dear commodity, I think, in a desert country. So what is that? Like what weird old west, spaghetti western notion of like what to put in a cart was going on there?
It might be some Blackwater scandal thing.
Could be.
You went there.
Yeah, I did. Well.
Well, let me ask you a question about. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pete.
I was going to say the hay falls off of the cart. I always kind of wondered why she didn't just jump off the cart.
She might be glad to be getting away from the fight for the time being.
Well, I think that might be an answer for another minute, or a discussion for another minute.
Could be.
If she gets off, the movie's over right there. So because the ark is in the cart underneath the hay. So
it'd be too easy. Too easy.
Super, super quick, by the way, before we get off this moment with the whip, I do believe this is like practically the only time in all of these movies that the whip is used as a weapon in the sort of Lash LaRue sense. Like if they pitched it, he's got a whip. That's his weapon. It's great.
Yeah.
Whips against swords and whips against guns. And it's like he only ever uses it to grab stuff, including occasionally a lady. And in this case, it's being used to kind of whip guys in the face and like you said, keep them at bay or worse. And it's the only time I think you ever see that. He takes
God, you might be right.
I think so.
That's
incredible. Yeah, that is incredible.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think, and I don't necessarily mean this as to be logged in our ongoing list, but do you think that the bullwhip is a clumsy and random weapon?
Not so much as a blaster.
Okay, sure. Just checking. That'd be funny though, because India has
an elegant weapon.
It is from a more civilized age, the 30s.
The jazz age.
Exactly. Okay, I have a question written down here, and I swear to you that I wrote it down before I knew that the guest this week was going to be an editor. Is editing the key to this movie? Because in the moment that I'm going backwards a little bit, but the moment that made me think of this is the Marion duck, and he shoves her head down, and it seems to me watching it for these minutes, the timing of her head coming back up is perfect.
Oh, it's so great.
Like if it's an awesome moment, and if she came up a second earlier, or if the image lasted a second longer, it would fall much flatter and be very weird. But the timing is perfect of that, and I wonder if that is like the unsung key to this movie.
Well, again, you may be asking a somewhat biased person, and I did not want to take all these minutes and sort of pull them into my strict area of expertise.
No, it's awesome.
But Michael Kahn is a genius.
Yeah.
I had the same remark in my notes. It says the shot where Marion rises back into frame is priceless.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, and it's and like I said before, when you have an action scene that's only taking place in wide shots and medium wide shots, and when you punch in, it's strictly to do little bits of business like this.
Yeah.
You're right. It happens. The timing of it is exquisite. It's just, she comes up at exactly the right second. You're reeling like the swordsman who gets whacked. You're reeling from the shock of that and the Ben Burt punch of that, and it's that juicy, meaty Ben Burt punch. It's like this little bit right here, this little 72 frames of stuff we got going on here is firing on all cylinders. You've got Ben Burt doing his best stuff. You've got Harrison Ford with the hat. This is like iconic stuff. And then at exactly the right second, you've got easily the best, the greatest bystander in all these movies. Marion is, and it's reductive. It's awful to call her a bystander, but she's frequently relegated to that position. But in here, she gives standing by a tremendous amount of character and a tremendous amount of heart, and it's done at exactly the second you need it.
Yeah.
When you're reeling from that punch and suddenly you just see this little bit of humor and you realize, okay, we watched a guy get run through. We watched, we're watching some pretty serious shit here, but this is still at its heart kind of it's an endeavor with some heart to it, I guess, is what that look says. And it's funny. It's just genuinely funny. So is editing the key? Editing's the key to all movies, I think.
No, you're not wrong.
But that's because it's a nice paycheck and you like to collect so you say stuff like that.
Yeah.
But no, it's a great observation.
Yeah. It's when you watch as I have recently for this, watching some behind the scenes stuff, and you see alternate takes of stuff, and you see scenes sort of being filmed, and you're like, oh, that looks a little dorky. That looks like a little actors in a room pretending to be other people. But then, so what's the difference between that and what's on the screen? And I think a lot of it has to be just, the exact precision of taking all those pieces and putting them together exactly the right way. It makes a huge difference. It makes it into this movie. Yeah. Oh,
it's so good. Michael Kahn is just everyone in this movie is doing their absolute just tip top work, but Michael Kahn is no exception. Really, really amazing.
Yeah. Well then, Pete, where can people get in touch with us and carefully edit their emails to us and things?
Yeah, please edit your responses. Check us out on Facebook and check us out at IndianaJonesMinute.com.
And join us here tomorrow for Minute 40 of Raiders of the Lost Ark here on the Indiana Jones Minute. Duck!
Duck! I don't
even know what you're doing, Jerry.